when effort is balanced so that it's neither excessive nor lacking, then our minds too, our knowing becomes balanced and happens automatically. The noting is very comfortable and seems to be happening automatically. One has an attitude of balance towards whatever one sees. One feels equanimity. So when one sees something delightful, one comes to understand that elation, feeling happy about this, one sees this also as bad, seeing the happiness that comes up due to a delightful object. And one also sees that anger in response to a dislikable object is also bad. So one has an attitude of balance towards objects that are delightful or disgusting. Whatever it is, the mind is balanced in viewing all objects. And those who practice will come to know very well what this experience is like. And this equanimity occurs at the stage of Uddiyabbiya Jnana. The yogi has at this stage a balanced mind, equanimity towards whatever arises in the body, starting with the rising and the falling. The yogi is, at this stage, the yogi feels calm. At the start, when knowledge develops, one feels experiences that are rather exciting, like goose flesh, or feeling lightning flashes, or bouncy. One feels springy. And then when the joy becomes stronger, one feels like one is floating on air, or rising up in the sky, or that this good feeling spreads throughout the body. So this piti, joy, is a springy and bouncy goodness. And then there's sukha and passaddhi, which is kind of a peaceful goodness. It feels good, but it's peaceful. And then at the higher stages of knowledge, it feels calm. There's a calm goodness. And then later, towards the end of one's development of Vipassana knowledge, it's the goodness that comes with seeing things die down and come to a halt. So these are the levels of the good things that we experience in the practice. At first, this kind of springy feeling of joy, and then then sort of the seeping and oozing feeling of calm, tranquility and peacefulness. And then at the higher stages of insight, one feels calmness. And if one takes the time to continue one's practice until Vipassana knowledge is complete, one reaches the stage of goodness due to things dying down, dying out and becoming still. So at this stage, though, when one has equanimity towards the object, one's mind is calm. One feels calm. So the yogi at this point is able to note comfortably, and due to the power of this balance that the yogi has, this vipassanupekkha, the yogi's mind is balanced in observing the mental and physical phenomena that are arising due to causes. One sees their how they arise and pass away. One sees their suffering nature that comes due to the fact that they arise and pass away. One sees their selfless characteristic with a completely balanced mind. And even when an object is not something good to know, one feels balance towards it. And even when the object is something good to note and knowledge is developing, one still has this attitude of balance towards the object, towards what is happening. And the yogi's noting seems to be going effortlessly, although later in the practice it becomes even better with no effort. Now the good noting is a result of effort that has been made. So at this point one has, due to that, one has the noting seems effortless. And what it's similar to is when one is driving a good car and there's nothing to worry about. There's no obstacles on the road, and one can just put the car on cruise control and drive without making much effort. So it's similar to that at this stage in the practice. The yogi, when the object strikes against the sense space, the mind investigates the object in a balanced way. The strength of this balanced attitude at the time the object strikes the base is very strong. And due to this is what it says in the text, and due to the strength of this balanced investigation of the object, the yogi's knowledge seems to rush into every object observed with momentum, naturally and automatically. The mind is able to note the arising object immediately without effort. And this balanced mind, this Vipassana, is a good Dhamma which occurs together with the defilements of insight, the Vipassana kilesas. So the lights and other phenomena that were mentioned earlier, lights, joy, both minor and major, and then peacefulness and so on. These phenomena they're like a decoration for our Vipassana. They make it very, very good. They make it very beautiful. And there's a quality called nikanti. That is enjoyment of these things, of these lights and so on. It's liking or being attracted or being stuck to it. It's a very, very subtle craving. And the word used in Pali is sukkuma. So it's so subtle that one doesn't even know that it is craving. One doesn't recognize it as an unwholesome mind state. So it's not easy for the yogi to see that this is a kilesa because it's so subtle. The yogi doesn't recognize this, that the nikanti is a kilesa. And instead the yogi thinks that it is delight in the Dhamma. The yogi thinks that it's something good. And the yogi thinks quite highly of this delight that they feel that is actually craving. And for that reason, the yogis say, when they experience this nikanti, they praise it, saying, only now am I able only now am I happy with the Dhamma. That's how good this is. This nikanti is good, and they feel as though only now am I happy with the Dhamma when they experience this. And at that stage, the yogi dwells on the joy and happiness that it occurs together with the lights and so on. And the yogi takes delight in his or her noting, which is very swift and tireless and very pure. And he or she says, surely I have now reached path and fruition. In fact, what the yogi is doing at this point is taking that which is not the path to nibbana to be the path. This is the yogi has a wrong belief at this point, that this nikanti is nibbana. Actually, it's a defilement of insight, something that weakens one's insight. And because of finding this nikanti so pleasurable, one even becomes lax about noting. One becomes bored, and one can't decide for oneself about whether one's experience is really the path or not. So at this point, it's very, very important to have the help of a teacher, because one's practice basically comes to a halt because of the enjoyment of the good feelings. So the teacher is very important in setting the yogi on track. So one thinks that the lights, the joy, the happiness, and so on that one is experiencing are path and fruition itself, and one takes pleasure in them. So this can happen. So that is what the teacher says, and the teacher also says that this enjoyment that the yogi feels is a defilement of insight. At this time, the yogi has to note the enjoyment and note whatever other objects arise as usual. At this point, one's observation is mixed with defilements, and therefore it's somewhat dirty, it's not clean. And although it's fast, it is what is called immature udyabhyajnana. It's still knowledge is arising, but it is mixed with defilements. And anyhow, that's what it's called, immature udyabhyajnana. And because of this being mixed with defilements, at that time the yogi cannot see the arising and the passing away of the objects very clearly. It's not very clear to the yogi at this time. At this stage in the practice, the teacher is very important. If one happens to be studying with a teacher who has not developed the practice, from a teacher who studies a little bit here with one teacher, a little bit there with another teacher, develops a notebook, but has not actually reached and gone past this stage in the practice, If one learns meditation from such a teacher and reaches this stage, how is that teacher going to be able to help the yogi? Sayadawji can't see how a teacher who doesn't have experience will be able to help at this crucial time. But in any case, if one reaches this stage in the practice of Uddiyabhya Jnana, and one is able to correct oneself, either from getting the advice of the teacher or from coming to understand on one's own what is the correct path, continuing the practice, one is sure to reach at least the level of Sotapatti path and fruition in this very life. Why is this? This is because the 5 causes for realizing Nibbana in this life are fulfilled. Of the 5 causes, the first is faith. At this point, one has faith in the qualities of the Buddha, and one has faith in the qualities of the Dhamma also, because one has practiced and developed knowledge, and one sees that the results that come from the practice are consistent with the teaching. One has trust in the teacher and in one's own practice, in oneself. So one has faith at this point, which is well developed, although it's not completely mature yet, it is well developed. At this time, if one analyzes the components that are in the mind, the Vipassana mind, at this time, in place of piti and sukha, there is upekkha vedana that is balance, and there is ekaggata, very good samadhi. So with this balanced observation and the mind falling collectively on the object, this is the start of 4th jhana. If one is not healthy, one will become healthy. And needless to say, people who are in good health and reach this stage of the practice will certainly be healthy. Why this is because of the ekaggata, or samadhi, and upekkha that occur at the stage of 4th jhana. The sense spaces become very clean, so eye problems can be eliminated. People who have problems hearing, this also can become clean. People who have problems they can't smell because their nose is somehow blocked, problems like this become clean, become eliminated. People who can't taste because they have some disease that affects their tongue. At this time in the practice, all these types of diseases that involve the sense organs can be overcome. And other forms of physicality also become very good at this point. One's appearance becomes bright. So this is how what are called upada rupa, or the dependent physicality, the ones that are based on the 4 great elements, how they become changed and purified by the power of the practice. Our blood too becomes very clean through the at this stage through the momentum and the influence of the samadhi. Because of the strength of the samadhi, the mind-produced materiality, which includes blood, is very pure. And especially at the stage of Uddiyabhya Jnana, when the knowledge of arising and passing away reaches the mature phase, one's blood becomes very clean. And then this clean blood circulates throughout the body. And whereas the blood may have been bad or diseased, it's that bad blood is dispelled, and with it, the disease is also dispelled, and the blood is replaced by clean, pure blood and clean, pure physicality. At this time, faith becomes strong, and thus it reaches the level of being a ruling faculty. And virya also is balanced. So at this time too, it reaches the level of being a ruling faculty. And our mindfulness is well established at this point, supatita. There's no missing of the object. So it too is a ruling faculty. And the samadhi, the momentary concentration or khanika samadhi, is also very good. And thus too, it's become a ruling faculty. So this indicates how strong it is. It's become more than ordinary strength. And our panya, our wisdom also is occurring moment by moment. So it too has reached the level of being a ruling faculty. One sees in the practice how causes lead to results. And so one comes to have faith in this process. And because the effort is balanced, the mind is kept from it's neither lazy nor scattered. So this is how virya acts as a ruler. It keeps the mind from either going to laziness or being scattered. And mindfulness eliminates negligence or pamada. Samadhi also makes the mind calm and collected. And ignorance is being eliminated moment by knowledge. Thus, at this point in the practice, the ruling faculties have begun to be developed in the yogi's mind. At this time in the practice, there are 19 Dhammas which arise and they decorate the mind. They make the mind very beautiful at this stage. First of all, there's faith, that is trust and confidence, which is clear. And then there's sati, well-established sati. And also hiri and ottappa, moral shame and moral dread. When the practice is good, one has shame about missing the object, and one fears missing the object because of the kilesas that might come in. In these days, at these times, most people have no fear about doing akusala, unwholesome deeds, and instead they have shame about doing wholesome things. But at this stage in our practice, we have a healthy moral shame and moral dread that is very refined, even regarding the noting. At this stage in the practice too, even though we might encounter a delightful object or a disgusting object, there's absence of greed, and there's absence of anger. These qualities don't arise. And equanimity, balance towards the object is very strong. And further, there's tranquility of both body and mind. The mind and body don't feel weary at all. And there's gentleness. The body and mind feel very gentle. And also lightness of body and mind. And also the body and mind become capable of doing the work of Vipassana. And one becomes skilled in one's work, so the body and mind are able to work easily. And also the mind becomes very upright, the mind and the body. And with this upright mind, one admits one's faults readily. So these are the beautiful mind states, the Shobhana Cetasikas, that decorate the mind at this stage in the practice, and they are very good. Among these beautiful mental factors, or Shobhana Cetasikas, the moral shame and moral dread, Hiri and Ottappa, become very good. And therefore, it's easy to avoid committing misdeeds of body, speech, or mind. And our knowledge is good. And therefore one can determine easily whether something that one is considering doing will be beneficial for self and others or not, whether it's suitable or not. And one also has a strong desire for the welfare of others. This is the quality of metta, loving kindness. And one has true compassion or karuna for others. With these two qualities, metta and karuna, one is happy to see the good things that others gain. One urges others to practice, and when they gain the Dhamma, then one is happy to see their success. At this time, one can be a good kalyana metta, a good spiritual friend to one's friends or relatives and family. One needs to practice and develop the practice in order to be able to help others as a good spiritual friend. And when one reaches the stage of udiyabbiya jnana, of seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomena, then one has the very start of being able to be a good spiritual friend. At the higher stages of knowledge, as one continues from the stage of udiyabbiya jnana, one comes to know the disappearance of the objects. And because of seeing how they disappear repeatedly, one comes to see them as frightening. And following that, one comes to see how they are conditioned phenomena, how they have faults. One comes to see their defects, the defects of mental and physical objects that one observes. And thus one becomes weary of the continual mind and body phenomena that one is observing. Becoming weary of them, one wants to become free of this. So, wanting to become free, one redoubles one's effort to observe the arising object. One resumes one's effort with more and more determination. So one sees very, very clearly how phenomena arise and pass away, how they are impermanent, suffering, and selfless. And as one continues to note, the noting becomes very, very comfortable. It becomes natural. And it seems as though the practice is just doing itself. So then one reaches the point in the practice, which is the last type of goodness that Sayadaw spoke about, the goodness where things just die down. So there's a stage in the practice which connects the lower stages of insight to the knowledge of realization of Nibbana. It's the knowledge which allows one to go from the Vipassana knowledge. It's the final stage of Vipassana knowledge, and it leads into realization of path and fruition. It's as though it pulls one up to the path knowledge. So up until that point of this final stage in the development of Vipassana knowledge, this is all called Lakkhana Prativeda Jnana. This is the insight, clear perception of the characteristics of phenomena. So from the beginning of Vipassana insight at the lower stages of seeing the arising and passing away, up until this knowledge that is called Sacchanuloma Jnana, the knowledge that leads one to realization of the Four Truths. All this is called Lakkhana Prativeda Jnana, and it is the third light of the Sasana. And continuing from that point, one goes from seeing the continual arising and passing away of mental and physical phenomena that occurs due to causes, to their cessation, which is called apavata. There's a moment in which one's state as a common worldling, a person who has not achieved the noble knowledge of path, that state is cut off and one realizes the path and sees Nibbana. So at that point, when one sees Nibbana, that is Nibbana Prativeda Jnana, the knowledge that sees clearly Nibbana. This is the fourth light of the Sasana, the fourth light of the teachings. And this comes from the base of right view of Kama as our own property, Kama Sakata Samadeti. Based on this understanding, we practice, we meditate, and we develop knowledge, first of all, seeing clearly the mental and physical phenomena, how they are different. This is the first light of Sasana, Dhamma-vivartana Jnana. And then seeing how they are related as cause and effect, the second light of Sasana. And third, seeing how they arise and pass away, that they are impermanent, unsatisfactory, without an inherent self. And so on, through all the stages of insight leading up to path knowledge. This is the third light of the Sasana. And the fourth light is the realization of Nibbana itself. If one continues to this stage of realization of Nibbana, then these lights of Sasana will never die out in one's being. And from there, if one continues to practice, one will gain more and more knowledge. So in describing the knowledge that is developed through the Vipassana practice, Sayadaw has just described the higher stages in a very brief manner. And of course, if he could describe them in detail, it would be fine, but it's not appropriate at this point. What he has said in detail is up until the stage of Uddiyabhya Jnana. So now, according to the plan for this 2 months, Sayadaw has spoken about our 5 lights and 5 kinds of darkness. Kama, Dhamma, Pisya, Lakkhana, Nibbana. 5 kinds of light and 5 kinds of darkness. So this knowledge that is called Kama Sakata Samadeti, the understanding that Kama is our own property. This is the knowledge that good begets good, good actions bring good results, bad actions, actions with bad intentions, bring bad results. Because of forgetting about this, the world is mostly in darkness. But now, through coming here and doing the practice, people have dispelled this darkness. And due to the practice, when one has seen the distinction between nama and rupa, one has replaced the darkness of confusion about the Dhamma with the light of understanding about nama and rupa, Dhamma Vivartana Jnana. If one has seen how these are related as cause and effect, then with the clear perception, clear knowing of cause and effect phenomena, one has dispelled the darkness, intense darkness about cause and effect, paccaya samoha. And further, if one has continued from there to see how phenomena arise and then pass away, how they are impermanent, suffering, and unsatisfactory, seeing their arising and passing away at the immature stage of Uddiyabhya Jnana, or the mature stage, or on through the higher stages of insight, one has replaced the darkness of intense confusion regarding the characteristics of phenomena with this knowledge that sees their characteristics clearly, lakkhana pativeda jnana. And finally, if one has developed path and fruition and realized nibbana, one has dispelled the darkness of not knowing about nibbana samoha. This occurs until we are able to see nibbana, but with the knowledge of path and fruition and realization of nibbana, with this nibbana pativeda jnana, we dispel that final type of darkness. So this is how 5 kinds of darkness are dispelled by 5 kinds of light. And among these 5 lights, the first is where we need to start, the understanding about Kama as our own property. And going from there, we develop the lights of this teaching in stages. So Sayadaw wishes that all the yogis be able to have this understanding about Kama as our own property and be able to develop all the 4 lights of the sasana. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu.